And we've reached the 9th chapter, which is called the Most Confidential Knowledge. Krishna has enlightened Arjuna, although he still has questions. Did you notice that? Even after he surrendered, he still has questions, he still has doubt. So it's not that once you surrender to Krishna, then there's going to be no more questions and no more doubts. What that means is that surrender to anything or anyone is an ongoing process. It's not a one, like they say, surrender to somebody, okay, and that's it, and you can do whatever you want. Surrender is an ongoing process. You go to school, you surrender, you apply, you get into the school, and it's not over. You have to keep surrendering to each teacher and each course and everything until you get your degree. So spiritual life is like that. It's an ongoing surrendering process that continues until you leave your body, till the moment you leave your body. And if you're not completely surrendered, it keeps on going after that. Okay, so we welcome Jason to our little reading group. It's a pleasure to see you and a pleasure to meet you.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. And to all of you, again and again, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. You're forgiven the first time. Don't let it happen again. It's okay. So, this now we're going deeper into the most confidential section of the Gita. The Gita consists of 18 chapters, and in the first 6, Krishna describes the difference between matter and spirit, therefore the difference between the body and the soul, and then he goes on to explain how to act in that spirit, in the consciousness that you're not the body, that you're the soul. And you look like you've just been to a wedding or something. What were you, the best man or something? I mean, you look like you're decked out. You look stunning. So, then he appeals to Arjuna in different ways. To teach him how to act in the world, do his duty, detach based on this knowledge. And then he teaches him the yoga system, the Ashtanga yoga system, which is a way to learn how to control the mind and the senses in a mystic process that depends on the strength of our own senses to, breathe in a certain way, sit in a certain way, be in a certain place, like that. And then he comes to the 7th chapter, and this is the 9th chapter we're in. In the 7th to the 12th chapter, he explains who he is explicitly, and why and how he controls the material world, and why he should actually favor doing what he wants him to do than what his mind wants him to do, or even what mundane morality wants him to do. Yeah. So now we've come up to the 9th chapter, and we're going to begin with text 6. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Bhagavad-gita as it is, chapter 9, beginning with text 6. Yatha kashastito nityam vayu sarvatago mahan tata sarvani bhutani Matstani tupadadaya. Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. I'll repeat that just so that we can get absorbed. Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. Purport. For the ordinary person, it is almost inconceivable how the huge material creation is resting in him. But the Lord is giving an example which may help us to understand. The sky may be the biggest manifestation we can conceive, and in that sky, the wind or air is the biggest manifestation in the cosmic world. The movement of the air influences the movements of everything. But although the wind is great, it is still situated within the sky. The wind is not beyond the sky. Similarly, all the wonderful cosmic manifestations are existing by the supreme will of God, and all of them are subordinate to that supreme will. As we generally say, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus everything is moving under His will. By His will, everything is being created, everything is being maintained, and everything is being annihilated. Still, He is aloof from everything, as the sky is always aloof from the activities of the wind. In the Upanishads it is stated, Yad Bisha Vatat Pabate. It is out of the fear of the Supreme Lord that the wind is blowing. In the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad, it is stated, by the supreme order, under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the moon, the sun, and the other great planets are moving. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated, Yach Chakshur Esha Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Sudamurti Rasheshate Jaha Yas Yagyaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This is a description of the movement of the sun. It is said that the sun is considered to be one of the eyes of the Supreme Lord, and that it has immense potency to diffuse heat and light. Still, it is moving in its prescribed orbit by the order and the supreme will of Govinda. So, from the Vedic literature, we can find evidence that this material manifestation, which appears to us to be very wonderful and great, is under the complete control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This will be further explained in the later verses of this chapter. Text 7. Sarva Bhutani Konteya Prakritim Yanti Mamikam Kalpakshaye Punastani Kalpado Vishijam Yaham. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. Purport. The creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this material cosmic manifestation are completely dependent on the supreme will of the personality of Godhead. At the end of the millennium means at the death of Brahma. Brahma lives for 100 years, and his one day is calculated at 4,300,000,000 of our earthly years. His night is of the same duration. His month consists of 30 such days and nights, and his year of 12 months. After 100 such years, when Brahma dies, the devastation or annihilation takes place. This means that the energy manifested by the Supreme Lord is again wound up in himself. Then again, when there is a need to manifest the cosmic world, it is done by his will. Bahu Syam. Although I am one, I shall become many. This is the Vedic aphorism. He expands himself in this material energy, and the whole cosmic manifestation again takes place. So there's a huge story in back of this that comes later in other scriptures after this one. but I'll just give you a little glimpse so that you can understand more about what this means. The living beings are conscious, and material energy is inert. It's not conscious. So the elements that make up our bodies and everything material is inert. This body is also inert. When the soul leaves the body, when the consciousness leaves the body, it's basically useless. I mean, you can keep it for a while. Sometimes people do that. They have wakes. You ever have a wake? They keep the loved one and they put him in a chair. They keep him around for a while after they left the body. It's like a kind of a ritual that they go through. But actually, the material body is made of material elements, and it's inert. So when all of the energy goes back into the body of the Lord, along with the conscious living beings, the material energy kind of conserves itself by, kind of a soup. I mean, the scientists might agree with this. There's a soup that starts it out, cosmic soup. But then all that energy is in the Lord. So now it's saying, then again, when there's a need to manifest the cosmic world, it is done by His will. So what I want to explain to you, just briefly, but truly, what is it? Why does it become a need? What's the need? Well, like a father has children because he wants to enjoy. So that's the basic need. He wants to enjoy. But what is it that motivates him to do that? That's the living entities inside him. They all have unfulfilled material desires. And when the combination of all those unfulfilled material desires of all the living beings in the whole universe are inside the body of the Lord, and they start to say, hey, so at one point He agrees, and for His pleasure, He creates the material world again, and they go back into the material world, and they take a situation that's similar to the situation they were in when the cosmic manifestation winds up. And then His pleasure is to give them an opportunity to come back to Him. That's what He wants. And by coming back to Him, it doesn't mean to merge back into His body. It means there's a spiritual world outside of this cosmic manifestation and this creation, process of creation. That's where we belong originally. That's why we don't want to die. That's why we want to know everything. And the combined need to know everything has resulted so far in the internet. And now we're finding out what that means. When you find out what everybody's really thinking, it's starting to build up to such an extent that only God knows what's going to happen next. And the whole problem of race and nationality and religion, or all these things, there's a one simple formula. You're not the body. Once you actually realize that you're not your body, and you see everybody, every living being as a part of God, and that God is inside, kind of organizing everything, just like a CEO will organize a company, then your consciousness changes. And then you can be a friend, an actual friend, with a person who looks different than you, or thinks different than you, or has a different social standard, a different occupation, or whatever. This is the solution. It's simple, and it sounds easy, but it's not so easy. So that's what the Bhagavad-gita is about, to teach the soul how to do that, how to come to that understanding. And then you can have happiness. And then you can have knowledge, full knowledge. And then you can have, ultimately, eternal life. We don't want to die. Nobody does. The ant doesn't want to die. You put your finger over, it goes here and there and everything, tries to escape. Cockroach, try to catch him. He's trying to get away. He doesn't want to die. That's because the soul is eternal. Each one of us, we don't want to die. We want to know. and we want to enjoy. We want to have bliss, spiritual bliss actually is what we're looking for. But when we come into this material world, those needs are reflected through the body and the mind, so that we try to be eternal within this body, and then we make huge arrangements, plastic surgery, cosmetics, the drug industry, big pharma, etc., etc., etc. And in doing that, we cut down trees and we dig in the earth to get we take down the plants, and it doesn't work. Every one of us has to leave the body. That's the plan. Okay? So far? Okay, good. Text 8. Prakritim swam abastabhya vishijami puna puna bhuttagramam imam kritsnam abhasham prakriter vishad. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again, and under my will, it is annihilated at the end. So one may say, well, if it's like that, then what about me? I mean, am I just a slave, an automan, what do they call them now? A bot? I'm a bot, just a robot? No. We have autonomy. Autonomy means you have choices. Like an autonomous state is a state that's underneath a country, and ultimately control is by another country, but they have autonomy. They have their own set of laws, and So we have autonomy because what Krishna wants is for us to come back to him and love him. So like a father wants his children to love him. Some of them just say, and they go away, and it's painful, So Krishna he's independent. He's completely independent, but because we're infinitesimal and he's infinite, so our independence is limited, but it's there, and therefore we can choose. In the material world, that's reflected in a choice to have a certain color car, or a certain kind of clothes, or a certain kind of dress, or whatever. Certain kind of activity. But the ultimate choice is whether or not we want to go back to Godhead or not. Whether or not we want to surrender to God and leave this temporary, miserable place, material world, and go back to a place where there's no birth and death and disease and old age and all those things that we're looking for. So that's what it said, by my will it is automatically manifested again and again, and under my will it is annihilated at the end. So we do have, under that automatic authority, we do have autonomy to choose. And that's our only real freedom. The other choices are done by the material nature. I have senses, they're in a certain material nature. This is in a certain material nature, and and when they're compatible, I'm thirsty, okay. That's just the material energy, us interacting with the material energy. But when we choose to come out of the material energy and take knowledge from without the material energy, then we can go back and get a spiritual body, our original spiritual body, and live eternally, without disease, without old age, without death, without birth. Purport. This material world is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This has already been explained several times. At the creation, the material energy is let loose as the Mahat Tattva, into which the Lord, as his first Purusha incarnation, Mahavishnu, enters. He lies within the causal ocean and breathes out innumerable universes, and into each universe the Lord again enters as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. Each universe is in that way created. He still further manifests himself as Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, And that Vishnu enters into everything, even into the minute atom. This fact is explained here. He enters into everything. Now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into this material nature, and as a result of their past deeds, they take different positions. Thus, the activities of this material world begin. The activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of the creation. It is not that all is evolved. The different species of life are created immediately along with the universe. Men, animals, beasts, birds, everything is simultaneously created, because whatever desires the living entities had in the last annihilation are again manifested. It is clearly indicated here by the word avasham, that the living entities have nothing to do with this process. The state of being in their past life, in the creation, is simply manifested again, and all this is done simply by His will. This is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of God. And after creating different species of life, He has no connection with them. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with it. So this is the illusion that Darwin was in when he proposed the theory of evolution. He's thinking that the forms change, and then they use permutation and crossbreeding and all these things as evidence that you can make a black cow a brown cow, or you can, change the number of hairs on a fruit fly, or something like that. But they can't make the fruit fly become a wasp, or they can't make a cow become a horse. And you've never seen it. Nobody's ever seen it. It's all up in somebody's brain. But the defect, I just heard Srila Prabhupada use this argument on a lecture or a conversation just recently. The scientists are in the laboratory putting something together, or crossing this animal with this, but they're forgetting that they're doing that. So the question is, even if we accept, for argument's sake, that evolution did happen like that, then who's doing that? He uses an example. You have an iron rod, and the iron rod by itself won't become a flute. But a man can make holes in it and fashion it in a certain way, and it becomes a flute. But that requires somebody doing it. And as soon as Prabhupada brought the person that he was talking to that point, who did it? The person was stunned, and then he started to become receptive. And then this is called education, spiritual education. There's no department in any university or any school or any organization that's teaching this, the science of this. And this is the science, spiritual science. It's not that it's blind faith. Two things that are condemned in the process of spiritual evolution. One is blind faith, blind following, and the other is absurd inquiry. Yeah? If there's real faith, if there's an understanding based on knowledge, real faith means based on knowledge. That there has to be a source. I have a source, my mother and father, each one of them had a source, each one of them had a source, and it doesn't go back to a monkey. There's no evidence that that's true. No black and white, hardcore smoking gun evidence. But if you keep tracing it back, you come to this situation. So this is called vijnana. It's called realized knowledge. The person who wrote this is realized the knowledge. Just like you've never been to India, maybe you have, but anyway, if you haven't been, somebody may explain to you what it's like, and then you can, if you just try to figure out, I wonder what it's like in India, you can't really know what it's like in India. You can't completely know until you go there, but You can know something if someone has been there and can tell you, look, I was there, it's like this, and this. That's what realized knowledge means. I hear a noise on the other side of the wall and I think, oh, what is it? And then somebody comes from the other side of the wall and says, it's this. Then I get realized knowledge of what's on the other side of the wall. But if I speculate about it, I can't actually be sure that I'm going to get that knowledge. That's the process we're engaged in now. Got it? Text 9. Nachamam tani karmani nibadnanti dhananjaya udasi nabadasinam asaktam teshu karmasu. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. Purport. One should not think in this connection that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no engagement. In his spiritual world, he is always engaged. In the Brahma Samhita it is stated, Atmaramasya tasyasti prakritya na samagamaha. He is always involved in his eternal, blissful, spiritual activities. But he has nothing to do with these material activities. Material activities are being carried on by his different potencies. The Lord is always neutral in the material activities of the created world. This neutrality is mentioned here with the word udasinavat. Although he has control over every minute detail of material activities, he is sitting as if neutral. The example can be given of a high court judge sitting on the bench. By his orders, so many things are happening. Someone is being hanged, someone is being put into jail, someone is being awarded a huge amount of wealth, but still he is neutral. He has nothing to do with all that gain and loss. Similarly, the Lord is always neutral, although he has his hand in every sphere of activity. In the Vedanta Sutra it is stated, Vaishamya nai grinye na. He is not situated in the dualities of this material world. He is transcendental to these dualities, nor is he attached to the creation and annihilation of this material world. The living entities take their different forms in the various species of life according to their past deeds, and the Lord doesn't interfere with them. Text 10. Maya jakshina prakriti suyate sachara charam hetuna ninakonteya jagad viparivartate. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Purport. It is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord, although aloof from all the activities of the material world, remains the Supreme Director. The Supreme Lord is the Supreme Will and the background of this material manifestation, but the management is being conducted by material nature. Krishna also states in Bhagavad-gita that of all the living entities in different forms and species, I am the Father. The Father gives seeds to the womb of the mother for the child, and similarly, the Supreme Lord, by his mere glance, injects all the living entities into the womb of material nature, and they come out in their different forms and species according to their last desires and activities. All these living entities, although born under the glance of the Supreme Lord, take their different bodies according to their past deeds and desires. So the Lord is not directly attached to this material creation. He simply glances over material nature. Material nature is thus activated, and everything is created immediately. Because he glances over material nature, there is undoubtedly activity on the part of the Supreme Lord, but he has nothing to do with the manifestation of the material world directly. This example is given in the Smriti. When there is a fragrant flower before someone, the fragrance is touched by the smelling power of the person, yet the smelling and the flower are detached from one another. There is a similar connection between the material world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, he has nothing to do with this material world, but he creates by his glance and ordains. In summary, Material nature, without the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot do anything. Yet the Supreme Personality of Godhead is detached from all material activities. Text 11. Abhajananti mam mudha manushim tunamasritam padam pavamajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know that my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord, they do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Purport. From the other explanations of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. The Personality of Godhead who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation cannot be a human being. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the original Supreme Personality, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. He is the Supreme Lord. There are many Ishwaras, controllers, and one appears greater than another. In the ordinary management of affairs in the material world, we find some official or director, and above him there is a secretary, and above him a minister, and above him a president. Each of them is a controller, but one is controlled by the other. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, undoubtedly, both in the material and spiritual world, but Krishna is the supreme controller, Ishvara, Parama, Krishna, and his body is Satchit, Ananda, non-material. Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in previous verses. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he is not a common man, the foolish deride him and considered him to be a man. His body is called here Manushim because he is acting just like a man, a friend of Arjuna's, a politician involved in the battle of Kurukshetra. In so many ways he is acting just like an ordinary man, but actually his body is Satchit Ananda, Vigraha, eternal bliss and absolute, and knowledge absolute. This is confirmed in the Vedic language also, Satchidananda Rupaya Krishnaya. I offer my obeisances under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the eternal blissful form of knowledge. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language also. Tam Ekam Govinda, you are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows. Satchit Ananda Vigraham, and your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternality. Despite the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's body, its full bliss and knowledge, there are many so-called scholars and commentators of Bhagavad-gita who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man due to his previous good work, but this conception of Sri Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore he is called Mudha, for only foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, and that he is the proprietor of everything that be, and that he can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him. Nor do they know that the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this material world is a manifestation of his internal energy. He is the master of the material energy. As has been explained in several places, Mama Maya Duratyaya. He claims that the material energy, although very powerful, is under his control, and whoever surrenders unto him can get out of the control of this material energy. If a soul surrendered to Krishna can get out of the influence of material energy, then how can the Supreme Lord, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the whole cosmic nature, have a material body like us? So this conception of Krishna is complete foolishness. Foolish persons, however, cannot conceive that the personality of Godhead Krishna, appearing just like an ordinary man, can be the controller of all the atoms and of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The biggest and the minutest are beyond their conception, so they cannot imagine that a form like that of a human being can simultaneously control the infinite and the minute. Actually, although he is controlling the infinite and the finite, he is apart from all this manifestation. It is clearly stated concerning his yogam aishwaram, his inconceivable transcendental energy, that he can control the infinite and the finite simultaneously, and that he can remain aloof from them. Although the foolish cannot imagine how Krishna, who appears like a human being, can control the infinite and the finite, those who are pure devotees accept this, for they know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore they completely surrender unto him and engage in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord. There are many controversies between the impersonalists and the personalists about the Lord's appearance as a human being. But if we consult Bhagavad-gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the authoritative texts for understanding the science of Krishna, then we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not an ordinary man, although he appeared on the earth, this earth, as an ordinary human. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, when the sages, headed by Shonaka, inquired about the activities of Krishna, they said, Kritavan kila karmani saharamena keshavaha atimartyani bhagavan gudat kapatamanushaha. Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with Balaram, played like a human being, and so masked, they performed many superhuman acts. The Lord's appearance as a man bewilders the foolish. No human being could perform the wonderful acts that Krishna performed while he was present on this earth. When Krishna appeared before his father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, he appeared with 4 hands, but after the prayers of the parents, he transformed himself into an ordinary child. As stated in the Bhagavatam, Bahuva Prakrita Shishu, he became just like an ordinary child, an ordinary human being. Now here again, it is indicated that the Lord's appearance as an ordinary human being is one of the features of his transcendental body. In the man is created in the image of God. We've heard that before. Man is created in the image of God. Now here again, it is indicated that the Lord's appearance as an ordinary human being is one of the features of his transcendental body. In the 11th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, it is stated that Arjuna prayed to see Krishna's form of 4 hands, Tinaiva, Rupena Chaturbhujena. After revealing this form, Krishna, when petitioned by Arjuna, again assumed his original human-like form, Manusham Rupam. These different features of the Supreme Lord are certainly not those of an ordinary human being. Some of those who deride Krishna and who are infected with the Mayavadi philosophy quote the following verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam to prove that Krishna is just an ordinary man. Aham sarveshu bhuteshu bhutat mavastitak sada. The Supreme is present in every living entity. We should better take note of this particular verse from the Vaishnava Acharyas like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, instead of following the interpretation of unauthorized persons who deride Krishna. Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, says that Krishna, in his plenary expansion as Paramatma, is situated in the moving and the non-moving entities as the Supersoul. So any neophyte devotee who simply gives his attention to the Archa Murti, the form of the Supreme Lord in the temple, and does not respect other living entities, is uselessly worshipping the form of the Lord in the temple. There are 3 kinds of devotees of the Lord, and the neophyte is in the lowest stage. The neophyte devotee gives more attention to the deity in the temple than to other devotees. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur warns that this sort of mentality should be corrected. A devotee should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart as Paramatma, everybody is the embodiment. Everybody is the embodiment of the temple or the Supreme Lord, or of the Supreme Lord. I have to read that again. A devotee should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart as Paramatma, every body is the embodiment of the temple of the Supreme Lord. So as one offers respect to the temple of the Lord, he should similarly properly respect each and every body in which the Paramatma dwells. Everyone should therefore be given proper respect and should not be neglected. There are also many impersonalists who deride temple worship. They say that since God is everywhere, why should one restrict himself to the temple worship? But if God is everywhere, is he not in the temple? Or in a deity? Although the personalist and the impersonalist will fight with one another perpetually, a perfect devotee in Krishna consciousness knows that although Krishna is the Supreme Personality, he is all-pervading, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Although his personal abode is Goloka Vrindavan, and he is always staying there, by his different manifestations of energy and by his different expansion, his plenary expansion, he is present everywhere in all parts of the material and spiritual creation. Text 12. Moga sha moga karmano moga dhyana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shitaha. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Purport. There are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the absolute truth. For them, the fruit of devotional service, pointing back to Godhead, will never be tasted. Similarly, those who are engaged in fruitive, pious activities and who are ultimately hoping to be liberated from this material entanglement will never be successful either, because they deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, persons who mock Krishna are to be understood to be demonic or atheistic. As described in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, such demonic miscreants never surrender to Krishna. Therefore, their mental speculations to arrive at the absolute truth bring them to the false conclusion that the ordinary living entity and Krishna are one and the same. With such a false conviction, they think that the body of any human being is now simply covered by material nature, and that as soon as one is liberated from this material body, there is no difference between God and himself. Which means God would be subject to illusion. This attempt to become one with Krishna will be baffled because of delusion. Such atheistic and demoniac civilization of spiritual knowledge is always futile. That is the indication of this verse. For such persons, cultivation of the knowledge of the Vedic literature, like the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads, is always baffled. It is a great offense, therefore, to consider Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to be an ordinary man. Those who do so are certainly deluded because they cannot understand the eternal form of Krishna. The Brihad Vishnu Smriti clearly states, Yo veti bhautikam deham Krishnasya paramatmanaha sasarvas mat bahishkarya shrota smarta vidanataha mukam tasya valokyapi sachelam snanamacharet. One who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti and the Smriti. And if one by chance sees his face, one should at once take bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. The train is going to allow us to let that sink in for a couple of minutes.
Aren't you gonna miss the train?
I don't think so. I'm gonna fly by a plane. People jeer at Krishna because they are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their destiny is certainly to take birth after birth in the species of atheistic and demoniac life. Perpetually, their real knowledge will remain under delusion, and gradually they will regress to the darkest region of creation. Text 13. Mahatmanas tumam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajantyananya manaso yatva bhutaramavayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Purport. In this verse, the description of the Mahatma is clearly given. The first sign of a Mahatma is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He is not under the control of material nature. And how is this affected? That is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, he is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti, divine nature. So when one is promoted in that way by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of great soul, Mahatma. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma, or great soul, develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna and Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. So we might think, well, if I give it all to him, then there's nothing left to go around, so I won't be able to love others. But that's not true, because he's the root of existence. Just like a tree, it has flowers and fruits and twigs and leaves and all kinds of facilities for safety and security and pleasure. But if you try to go around and water the individual parts of the tree, then the tree will die, and you won't get the fruits anymore, the flowers or anything. But if you pour the water on the root, then automatically through the system, all those parts are nourished, and you can enjoy them all. So, like that, if we learn the art of loving Krishna, then by the system of transcendental organization by Krishna, then we become capable of loving all other beings. But if we try to love beings separately from Krishna, from the root, then eventually it breaks. That's why every relationship in the material world eventually breaks. All of our bodies are changing. There's no one who's going to be able to stay in this body forever. Therefore, there is no real love in this material world. There is, I don't want to say that we shouldn't treat each other with love and affection in our different relationships, but we should also be aware and conscious. This isn't fatalism or, a thought that would bring us to depression or, something like that. It's a thought that frees us from material delusion and thinking that the material energy is going to protect us, from leaving the body. It's not possible. But still we have our relationships. And if we put those relationships, Krishna in the center of those relationships, then, because we know then that everyone is a part of Krishna and therefore belongs to Krishna, if you have something that belongs to a dear one, that thing becomes dear to you also. They say, love me, love my dog. If you're a friend of a guy and you come into his flat and he's got a dog and you kick him in the face, the guy's going to say, hey, you're out. That's the nature. That's the nature. Text 14. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridavataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. After always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Purport. The Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. His symptoms are described here. A Mahatma is always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, the personality of Godhead. He has no other business. He is always engaged in the glorification of the Lord. In other words, he is not an impersonalist. When the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord, praising His holy name, His eternal form, His transcendental qualities, and His uncommon pastimes. One has to glorify all these things. Therefore, a Mahatma is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is attached to the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmajyoti, is not described as Mahatma in this Bhagavad-gita. He is described in a different way in the next verse. The Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotional service, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting about Vishnu, not about a demigod or human being. That is devotion. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, and Smaranam, remembering Him. Such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of the Supreme Lord in any one of the 5 transcendental rasas. So, you haven't heard about this yet. I'll explain to you what the 5 rasas are. Neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parenthood, and conjugal love. And if you think about it, there's no relationships in human society outside of those relationships. Every relationship that you have with any other human being can be put into one of those categories. Because they are the original relationships we can have with Krishna in the spiritual world. And the relationships that we have here are perverted reflections of that relationship. Therefore, in a sense, we're trying to imitate Krishna when we come here. To have those relationships, those same relationships, in a perverted or a temporary way. It's like autonomy. A man will has a baby. The baby gets to the point where he can crawl. So he gives, when the baby gets a little bit bigger and can crawl, he puts a playpen, and the baby can crawl all over. He's free to crawl anywhere he wants within that space, but he can't go out of that space. When he gets a little bigger, he needs a little bigger space. Like that, when we mature, we need a bigger space in this material world, and ultimately, when we're perfect and advanced, we need the spiritual sky to express our love and devotion to Krishna. The Mahatma is always engaged in different I'm going up a little bit. The Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotional service, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting about Vishnu, not a demigod or human being. That is devotion. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, and Smaranam, remembering Him. Such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of the Supreme Lord in any one of the 5 transcendental rasas. To achieve that success, He engages all activities, mental, bodily, and vocal, everything, in the service of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. That is called full Krishna consciousness. In devotional service, there are certain activities which are called determined, such as fasting on certain days, like the 11th day of the moon, Ekadashi, and on the appearance day of the Lord. All these rules and regulations are offered by great acharyas for those who are actually interested in getting admission into the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world. The Mahatmas, great souls, strictly observe all these rules and regulations, and therefore they are sure to achieve the desired result. As described in the second verse of this chapter, not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. One does not need to undergo any severe penance and austerity. He can live this life in devotional service, guided by an expert spiritual master, and in any position, either as a householder or as a sannyasi or brahmachari, in any position, anywhere in the world, he can perform this devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become actually Mahatma, a great soul. Text 15. Jnana yogyena chapyanye yajanto mamupasate ekatvena pritatvena bahuda vishvatomukam. Others, who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge, worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many, and in the universal form. Purport. This verse is the summary of the previous verses. The Lord tells Arjuna that those who are purely in Krishna consciousness and do not know anything other than Krishna are called Mahatma. Yet there are other persons who are not exactly in the position of Mahatma, but who worship Krishna also in different ways. Some of them have already been described as the distressed, the financially destitute, the inquisitive, and those who are engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. But there are others who are still lower, and these are divided into three. 1. He who worships himself as one with the Supreme Lord. 2. He who concocts some form of the Supreme Lord and worships that. And 3. He who accepts the universal form, the Vishwarup, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worships that. Out of the above three, the lowest, those who worship themselves as the Supreme Lord, thinking themselves to be monists, are most prominent. Such people think themselves to be the Supreme Lord, and in this mentality they worship themselves. This is also a type of God worship, for they can understand that they are not the material body, but are actually spiritual soul. At least such a sense is prominent. Generally, the impersonalists worship the Supreme Lord in this way. The second class includes the worshippers of the demigods, or those who by imagination consider any form to be the form of the Supreme Lord. That's called pantheism. And the third class includes those who cannot conceive of anything beyond the manifestation of this material universe. They consider the universe to be the supreme organism or entity and worship that. The universe is also a form of the Lord. Text 16. Aham kratur aham yagya swadaham aham aushadam mantroham ahame vajam aham agniraham hutam. But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. Purport. The Vedic sacrifice, known as Jyotishtoma, is also Krishna, and he is also the Mahayagya mentioned in the Smriti. The oblations offered to the Pitriloka, or the sacrifice performed to please the Pitriloka, considered as a kind of drug in the form of clarified butter, is also Krishna. Is that in the book? Is that exactly what it says? The oblations offered, oh I see, that's right. The oblations, it's talking about the oblations. The oblations offered to the Pitriloka, or the sacrifice performed to please the Pitriloka, considered as a kind of drug in the form of clarified butter, is also Krishna. The mantras chanted in this connection are also Krishna. And many other commodities made with milk products for offering in the sacrifices are also Krishna. The fire is also Krishna, because fire is one of the 5 material elements and is therefore claimed as the separated energy of Krishna. In other words, the Vedic sacrifices recommended in the karma kanda division of the Vedas are in total also Krishna. Or in other words, those who are engaged in rendering devotional service under Krishna are to be understood to have performed all the sacrifices recommended in the Vedas. That means in previous lifetimes. If one comes to the point of chanting Hare Krishna and worshipping Krishna and bowing down to Krishna and hearing about Krishna and learning the science of Krishna, the details, then he comes to the point. He comes to the perfection. Text 17. Pitaham asya jagato mata dhata pitamaha vidyam pavitram omkara riksama jajurevacha. I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajur Vedas. Purport. The entire cosmic manifestations, moving and non-moving, are manifested by different activities of Krishna's energy. In the material existence, we create different relationships with different living entities who are nothing but Krishna's marginal energy. Under the creation of Prakriti, some of them appear as our father, mother, grandfather, creator, so on. But actually they are parts and parcels of Krishna. As such, these living entities, who appear to be our father, mother, and so on, are nothing but Krishna. In this verse, the word Data means creator. Not only are our father and mother parts and parcels of Krishna, but the creator, grandmother, and grandfather, etc., are also Krishna. Actually, any living entity being part and parcel of Krishna is Krishna. All the Vedas, therefore, aim only toward Krishna. Whatever we want to know through the Vedas is but a progressive step toward understanding Krishna. That subject matter which helps us purify our constitutional position is especially Krishna. Similarly, the living entity who is inquisitive to understand all Vedic principles is also part and parcel of Krishna, and as such is also Krishna. In all the Vedic mantras, the word Om, called Pranava, is a transcendental sound vibration and is also Krishna. And because in all the hymns of the 4 Vedas, Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva, the Pranava or Omkara is very prominent, it is understood to be Krishna. So this doesn't mean that we think that I can think that I am Krishna. I'm part of Krishna. I'm qualitatively the same as Krishna, but I'm not quantitatively the same as Krishna. So everything's Krishna in a sense that everything is Krishna's energy, either material or spiritual. Like now he's recording my voice, so then if I play it back, it sounds just like me. It's like I'm in the room, but that sound is separated from me. So God stays aloof, and his separated energies come from him, and then they conduct this material creation. And then he has personal expansions also, some of which are as powerful as him, and some of them are qualitatively as powerful, but not quantitatively powerful. That's us, the living entities. And we're marginal. We can choose to live in the spiritual world or in the material world. That's what we're looking for. That's real knowledge. Text 18. Katir Bharta Prapu Sakshi Nivasak Sharanam Surit Prabhavak Pralayakstanam Nidanam Bijam Avyayam. I am the goal the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. Purport. Gati means the destination where we want to go. But the ultimate goal is Krishna, although people do not know it. One who does not know Krishna is misled, and his so-called progressive march is either partial or hallucinatory. There are many who make as their destination different demigods, and by rigid performance of the strict respective methods, they reach different planets, known as Chandraloka, Suryaloka, Indraloka, Maharloka, and so on. But all such lokas or planets, being creations of Krishna, are simultaneously Krishna and not Krishna. Such planets, being manifestations of Krishna's energy, are also Krishna, but actually they serve only as a step forward in realization. Siri thought that I was talking about her. No, I'm not talking about you. Okay. Such planets, being manifestations of Krishna's energy, are also Krishna, but actually they serve only as a step forward for realization of Krishna. To approach the different energies of Krishna is to approach Krishna indirectly. One should directly approach Krishna, for that will save time and energy. For example, if there is a possibility of going to the top of a building by the help of an elevator, why should one go by the staircase, step by step? Everything is resting on Krishna's energy. Therefore, without Krishna's shelter, nothing can exist. Krishna is the supreme ruler because everything belongs to him and everything exists on his energy. Krishna, being situated in everyone's heart, is the supreme witness. The residences, countries, or planets on which we live are also Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate goal of shelter, and therefore one should take shelter of Krishna, either for protection or for annihilation of his distress. And whenever we have to take protection, we should know that our protection must be a living force. Krishna is the supreme living entity, and since Krishna is the source of our generation, or the Supreme Father, no one can be a better friend than Krishna, nor can anyone be a better well-wisher. Krishna is the original source of creation and the ultimate rest after annihilation. Krishna is therefore the eternal cause of all causes. Text 19. Tapam yaham aham varsham nigrinam utrisami. Tapam yaham aham varsham nigrinam utrijami cha. Amritam chaivamit yuscha sarasach chaham Arjuna. O Arjuna, I give heat, and I withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality, and I am also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. Purport. Krishna, by his different energies, diffuses heat and light through the energy of electricity and the sun. During summer season, it is Krishna who checks rain from falling from the sky. And then during the rainy season, he gives unceasing torrents of rain. The energy which sustains us by prolonging the duration of our life is Krishna. And Krishna meets us at the end as death. By analyzing all these different energies of Krishna, one can ascertain that for Krishna there is no distinction between matter and spirit. Or, in other words, he is both matter and spirit. In the advanced stage of Krishna consciousness, one therefore makes no distinctions. He sees only Krishna in everything. Since Krishna is both matter and spirit, the gigantic universal form comprising all material manifestations is also Krishna, and his pastimes in Vrindavan as two-handed Shyamasundar playing on a flute are those of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. So these are the details, Chase. These are the details. God is great. It's true. But without the details, it becomes fanaticism, which is going on now. All these drastically extreme so-called spiritualists, they're they're out of hand. They don't know the details, and they have sentiment. The sentiment's partially, partially correct. Prabhupada used to say that religious sentiment without knowledge or philosophy is simply fanaticism, or and sentimentalism, or knowledge without the religious sentiment simply becomes dry speculation, just mental, So we have to have both, and especially now when technology has taken us to a state where we can find out things easier, the common man, than we could before, and the states of mundane education have become very high. We need this. We need the spiritual science. So therefore, our spiritual master and founder came to this Western world from India in 1965 with nothing, literally. He had $7, which amounted to how many rupees then? 40 rupees. That's all he had. The cloth on his back, a bag full of cereal, and about 200 sets of the first 3 volumes of his Srimad Bhagavatam. That's all he had. He didn't have any friends, didn't know anybody, and he came to New York City. And 12 years later, there were 108 centers all over the world. Personalities like us who have learned the philosophy and can teach it. That's not human activity. It's never been done before, and it'll never be done again. And he started when he was 70 years old. I just turned 71, and I can tell you, that's not human. There was an article in Newsweek magazine a few years ago, I don't remember what year it was, but the name of the article was Late Bloomers. And it was an article about those human beings who have done the most for human society from late in life, beginning and late in life. And they drew the line at 60. And there were only 5 persons. At least they chose, I'm sure there are more, but they chose 5 persons. Prabhupada was one of them. And they gave him special kudos because he started at 70. So those of us who have been experienced at trying to spread Krishna consciousness, like I've been doing that for 45 years now, and to think that, to imagine that the world wasn't Krishna conscious and I could come at this state of my age and spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, it's just out of the question. It's out of the question. So therefore, Jesus Christ was in that position. He spread love of God all over the world, but it was incomplete knowledge, and therefore the sentiments were there, and they still are there, very strong. But without the knowledge, without the details, without the science, the spiritual science, it goes crooked, and then it starts to think other groups of people who are not Christian, or in the Islam case, Islam, or Hindu case, Hindu, then they can't bring everyone together as the real family. They all say that God's the Father, but if you don't know who the Father is, then you're in the dark. So, Hare Krishna. This knowledge is Krishna. The spiritual knowledge is not different than Krishna, but in a more personal way, in a more direct way, and in a more powerful way than the energies of Krishna. The personal form of Krishna, the personal name of Krishna. Jehovah, Yahweh, Allah. These names are names for God, but they're names of all merciful, all powerful qualities of God. But Krishna is has a form and a personality, and there are personal names, and those names are more powerful than the indirect names. So that's what is meant to be spread now, to bring human society together. Just look at us. Just check it out. Microcosm in this world. Age, race, gender, nationality, age, everything. And we're tasting something together that's real. And that's what we're looking for, and that's what will bring human society together. Hare Krishna. So this book is yours. You can read this book and try to understand. Come and be with the devotees. Continue this, hearing and chanting. I'm speaking like this because I have to go tomorrow. I'm going to Dallas, then I'm going to UK, and then I'm going back to India. But I'll be here next year, and believe me, I can't stay here as many months as I did. I got real sick. This is a knowing laugh that are going, not knowing laughter. So please don't feel like you're in the outside. You're not. You're not. There's a taste, there's a satisfaction of heart, and there's even a satisfaction of the senses which come from coming to Krishna consciousness. The beauty of the deity, the taste of the food that's offered to Krishna, the sound that satisfies the ear, and the knowledge that satisfies the intelligence. Everything. One can become completely satisfied. Rare thing. And be warned that your nearest friends sometimes will think you're crazy.
Yeah.
It's not easy to go the opposite direction as most people are going, as the world's going, taking us into a fire. Now in the States, the whole thing's like beginning to burn again, Not necessary. Ignorance. Ignorance of who we are. Ignorance of what the goal of life is. Ignorance of where we came from. Got questions? Reflections? Comments?
Yeah, I was feeling like when you were reading one of them, the he who accepts the universal form and worships that. I feel like if Krishna is in all of these sub things, then would not that universal form of like the summation of all those things be directly like Krishna? And then it seems like that is not the right way to look at it. And I'm wondering like
what is the right way to look at it?
What's the other thing if it's not the sum of all of the things?
Yeah, the form of Krishna is the other thing. Like within the body of a male and a female are the creative potencies. When the semen is injected into the body of the female, and then there's, conjugation, there's impregnation, and then there's life. Life comes from the male into the female, and the female produces or provides the ingredients to create the body, and but neither of them can do it by themselves. But in the beginning of creation, Krishna by himself, he produces the original created being. Therefore it says in another part, he's the mother and the father. We can't be the mother and the father. That's what makes him apart from everyone else. So his energies, material and spiritual, are expanded everywhere. Like the sun, this is an analogy. Krishna's not impersonal. I'm just giving an analogy. the sun is in one place of the sky, but by the light and the heat and the light that is emanating from the sun is everywhere. If you ask anyone, where's the sun? It's on my head. And if you go down, 100, miles down the road, where's the sun? It's on my head. And if it's noontime, it's right over my head. If you go to another place and it's noontime, it's over your head again. This is mystic power. This is mystical understanding. It's a different way of looking at things. Rather than think that my body is the same body, but it's just grown, we should understand that our body is changing. And we have had different bodies. When we had a baby body, we couldn't do the same things as we do now, even we're the same person. We have a different capacity to do things and to think things and to understand things. That comes from a different body. The body's changing. And at the time of death, the body changes again. When we go to sleep at night, we go into a dream and we fly through the air, or we make a touchdown, or a slam dunk, or whatever it is that we're doing that we want to do in the dream. And we get the thrill, we get the same thrill, the sensation, as we do when we're here in this plane. And our body's on the bed. And then we do have these struggle, and we go back into the dream body and back and forth. Which is real? Which body is real? And then after some time, we give up the dream body after like a night's sleep. And after some time, 50 years, 100 years, whatever, we give up this body. So that's what's meant by the soul is maintaining the body, but there's a supreme soul who's maintaining the whole universe. Because of the presence of the soul, the body's growing. A stillbirth is when the soul has left the body of a baby in the womb of the mother. That's called stillbirth. The body will no longer grow. It stops growing. Why? It's connected to the mother's body. It's getting the nutrients from the mother's body. Why should it stop to grow? If we are the body, why should the body stop to grow? When we're still connected to the mother. Because the growth is coming from the spirit, from the soul, from the spiritual energy, consciousness. So Krishna is the supreme consciousness. And the universal body is his external form, temporary external form. But he has an eternal form, aloof from that. And both those energies are coming from him. Both the material energy and the spiritual energy. So therefore we can worship the universal body and make some progress. But we can make more progress if we worship like if you go into a big city and it's nicely organized, you might appreciate the city, and the level of your appreciation will be limited. But if you can meet the founder of that, that's why they make statues to people that found the city, and things like that. You drive from here and you see Sam Houston. It's like big statue on the side of the road, Not anybody can get that kind of statue on the side of the road of himself, So like that, we appreciate. There's different levels of God realization. One of them is to appreciate. But if you can go to and meet Sam Houston, shake his hand and say, "Well done, sir. This is really a beautiful place. It took a lot of energy to do this." Then the pleasure that you get from that, the reciprocation you get from that is more. So like that, God consciousness has different levels of realization. It's not that there's many paths to one place. There's only one path to one place. In the sense that there are many stages of approaching that place. If you look at a mountain from a distance, from a great distance, it looks just like a purple haze on the horizon. And if that's all the closer you got to a mountain, and somebody asks you, "What's a mountain?" You'll say, "What's a purple haze on the," And if you go closer to the mountain, you'll see greenery and you'll see shape and form. And if you go right onto the mountain, then you'll see everything, the living beings and the rivers and the trees, the plant life and everything. So this is an analogy to understand, try to understand the different levels of God realization. So we don't have arguments with anybody. I mean, sometimes when we're neophytes, we may. Our arguments are, as Krishna pointed out by Krishna, if someone blasphemes Krishna out of ignorance, then we will fight. Not because personally we were offended, but because that's just an offense against God. It's an offense against Krishna. Now the Muslims, they think like that. They think we hate us, therefore, some of them, not all of them, but the radical people, the fanatics who have some partial knowledge without philosophy. You ask any of them who has got, you can't talk about that. What's the form of God? No, you can't. I'll cut your head off if you try to make a form of God. You know, this is all the sum total of the reactions and actions of all the activities of all the human beings in the history of the universe. You see a train, see the train? What's a train? Oh. You know, if that's all you've heard of a train, that's what you're going to think a train is. You ask a little boy, what's a train? Oh. It's that sound we hear 5-6 times a day. But then if the train stops and you can get on the train and see what's going on, then you can understand more. So all of this fighting that's going on, it's all out of ignorance. And that education is required. Therefore, our spiritual master, my spiritual master, the founder of this movement, his idea was, his plot, as he called it, was to uplift the consciousness, and it is creating, by the way, polarization. It will create polarization, because when you start telling, you'll find out. Tell your friends about this. I just went to the Hare Krishnas, man, and I met a guy, he was orange, he got a bald head, and he was saying all these far-out things. And this made sense to me. It made sense to me. He's going mad or something? You know, that's the way it is. People are afraid of what they don't understand. They haven't been educated from the beginning of their lives. And therefore they've got all these misconceptions and they're just overwhelmed with them. They're overwhelmed with fear and anger because they don't understand what makes people different. They don't understand how one source can make people different. Therefore, they either blame God or they misunderstand Him and try to wipe everybody out who doesn't believe the same as me. That's it, in a nutshell. I mean, there's more details to it than that. You know, this is 700 verses, the Gita, you got in your hand. The next book that starts off from where that left off is 18,000 verses. Yeah. And the creation is described in many, many of those verses. Details. And the next verse, the next book that takes off from that is, I don't know how many verses exactly. Somebody know? But it's like, oh, I'll show you. This set of books is the Bhagavad-gita, 18,000 verses. This set of books is the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That describes all about the loving relationships between the Lord and His associates in the spiritual world. This is a complete spiritual education. You want to know? Find out. You want to find out? Read these books. Especially in the association of pure devotees. This energy that you're feeling right now, it ain't imaginary. It's not imaginary. You know, there's different things that people do when they get together. You know, pro football game, pro basketball game, concerts, Warped Tour, boxing matches, whatever, and they all get out and they go, ah, together, and then they get some, I don't know what they get some jacked up on something. Some of them are jacked up on something. In most places they're jacked up on something. But here we're jacked up only one thing, and that's love for God, because we don't take intoxication. Nobody in this room takes intoxication. None of us have illicit sex. We don't gamble. We don't eat meat. You tell that to somebody, so what do you do then, man? I mean, that's, that's life. What are you talking about? You don't do those things. What are you, crazy? Impossible. Not impossible. Those four activities are the root of all other activities that are against the law of nature, that are against the law of God. Anyway, food for thought. Think about it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Come back again. These persons can explain everything to you.
Not as well as you can.
Not as well as that can, because I'm just reading this book. Okay, so I've been reading a long time, and I'm committed, really committed. I'll give myself that. I've agreed not to change it. That's all. Okay, Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been, what can I say? Lifesaver. Life-saving experience. I'm making it. Everybody knows something you don't know yet. I had a very heavy bout with typhoid fever. Yeah, 48-day fever. Yeah, and I almost left my body. She's my doctor. She saved my life. Well, Krishna saved my life, but she was there, to cooperate. So that's why they're laughing. Anyway, I'm going tomorrow. This will be our last session. Thank you very much. It's a wonderful thing that's happening here. It's growing, and please keep it up. I'll be back here next year, and I'll stay. Maybe not as long as I did this time, but at least a month or month and a half. And we'll do this every night, again. And if you just keep doing it, it doesn't take me to read it for this to happen, honestly. It doesn't. Or anybody else, or even I have godbrothers who know hundreds of times more than me. But this is rare. This is rare. That you just hear together these books like we're reading them. It's rare. No personal involvement. There's personal involvement because bringing out our personal relationship with God and with each other. But in other words, what I'm trying to say is that the knowledge is coming down to us. There's a current that's flowing from Krishna. And if you look at the introduction of that book, it's about 41 pages in, so you have to kind of go a few pages in. Yeah, there you go. No, back, go back. Yeah. Keep going. Maybe I'm thinking, no. What? Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. What page is it on?
Right, just before the first chapter.
Yeah. So that list, yeah, there you go. So the first person on that list is Krishna, and he spoke the Bhagavad-gita. And the next one, Narada, he took it and spread it around, and Vyasadeva, like that. It's coming down. It's knowledge that's coming down from one person's mouth to another person's ear, one person's mouth to another person's ear. Therefore Jesus said, let those who have ears hear. So we've all got ears, flaps on our side of our heads, and a hole in the head, and little fibers that move. allow us to hear these things. But, so what does it mean? Let those who have ears hear. It means you have to be in a certain consciousness to actually hear transcendental knowledge. And all the rules and regulations and the restrictions and the do's and the do-nots, they're there to give us the proper, to make us receptive properly to hear. And if you go on hearing, then you'll become spiritualized and you'll want to go back to Godhead. And when you hear about Krishna, you'll feel wonderful feelings, and eventually you'll feel separation so strong that Krishna will take you back to Godhead. That's the process in a nutshell. And it's pretty cool. It's about as cool as it gets. Okay, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.